In today's video, I'm actually going to talk about histamine. And I'm doing this video by request, and I actually learned quite a bit from doing the little bit of research I did find on histamine and why some people may have a histamine reaction or intolerance when doing the carnivore lifestyle. So, first, histamine is a chemical in your body that sends a signal to your brain to signal the release of stomach acid. It also can be released as part of the immune system's response to an injury or allergic reaction. So this could, histamine can cause inflammation and all that other stuff because it's your body's immune response as well to put extra histamine in when you're injured. So the white blood cells are the primary producers of histamine in your body. So when histamine reaction occurs, it's because the intestines cannot break down the histamine's chemicals all the way, and this leads to a high level of histamine in the blood. And so we naturally have histamine in our body, but when we can't digest it all the way or break it down because there's too much, it causes even more into our system, and that's what leads to these histamine reactions or intolerances. So basically what it is the inability to break down histamine is usually from low levels of an enzyme called diamine oxidase, DAO is what they actually abbreviate it as. And another enzyme that helps with the breakdown of histamine is histamine-N-methyltransferase, which is abbreviated as HNMT. And when an allergen binds to the IgE antibody in your body, this can cause those cells to release histamine as well. So it's a cool little process, actually, if you read into more of it. And all this information will be down in the description along with the studies and websites that I found this information from as well, so you guys can look into it on your own. So when the body can't break down histamine, it actually leaks in the body through the intestinal lining into the bloodstream, that triggers your immune response. So some of these symptoms that you may have experienced include bloating, diarrhea, headaches, abdominal pain, nausea, flushing of the skin, congestion, runny nose, watery eyes, itchy eyes, dizziness, heart palpitations, fatigue, anxiety, and vomiting. So those are just some of the symptoms that you can experience with a histamine reaction. For things that can cause this is mainly food, but there are some medications that can actually interfere with your DAO and HNMT enzyme levels. And remember, those are what help your body break down histamine molecules in your body. So when those are somehow interfered with, that's where it can lead to more histamine in your body and those symptoms and such. So medications can interfere with those levels, and some of those medicines include antibiotics, antidepressants, antiarrhythmiatics, antihypertensives, muscle relaxants, narcotics, local anesthesias, gastrointestinal medicines, immune modulators, diabetic medication, antihistamines, and histamine blockers are just to name a few. Obviously, the specific names of those medicines, you'd have to research into the specific medicines, but anything that usually pertains to those things could possibly interfere with your DAO and HNMT enzyme levels. So over-the-counter medications can also interfere with these levels, and those include ibuprofen and aspirin as well. There are some health conditions that can damage your gut, which can cause histamine reactions, and some of those are examples such as IBS and Crohn's. There are a lot of foods that contain high amounts of histamines. These include alcohols, aged cheese, fermented foods, smoked products, spinach, eggplants, ketchup, vinegar, and canned fish. Foods that can trigger the release of histamine include citrus fruits, cocoa and chocolate, tomatoes, eggs, egg whites, fish, and peanuts. And also aged meats can also cause histamine reactions in some, and that's where some carnivores will experience histamine reactions. So they have to eat the freshest meat they can find possible, and that's where your local farmer and rancher are going to come into play, because you can get with them and they can actually have the beef butchered and cut and wrapped in the same day without it hanging in the cooler for 14 days, which is usually about the average time a beef is hanging in the cooler. So if you are experiencing histamine reactions while being a carnivore and you're mainly eating beef, butter, bacon, and eggs, try limiting your egg whites, see what happens. If it's still that case, I would probably suggest looking at fresher cuts of beef and where you're not buying aged beef, which is more likely if you're buying it from the store, you're buying that aged beef. So keep that in mind. So foods that are low in histamine include fresh meats, so right off the animal and eating and cut and wrapped and frozen in that same period of time, fresh fish, cooked egg yolks, fresh pasteurized milk and milk products, and organ meats. So eating beef liver can help. It contains DAO enzyme, which helps break down that histamine. B12 helps convert the histidine to histamine. Without enough vitamin B12, histidine can cause histamine intolerance symptoms. And then hemo iron and zinc also help with metabolizing histamine as well. Hence the importance of eating red meat in your diet in general. And then making sure you consume the proper amount of vitamins and minerals such as vitamin B6, vitamin C, copper, magnesium, zinc, calcium, vitamin B1, and vitamin B12 is also important, and hence that's where that beef liver comes into play. If you can't handle beef liver, try chicken liver. Cod liver is good too, and it's very mild. Try mixing it in with your ground beef every now and then to kind of mask that taste if you can. You can also buy supplements if you would like as well. Now, people can actually be bit by the Lone Star tick and actually have a temporary allergy to red meats. Now, this is normally temporary. However, there are some instances where it's actually not temporary. But if you were bit by a Lone Star tick, there's a possibility you are going to have an allergy to red meat for a little while. So you're going to have to eat other cuts of meat until you are healed from that tick bite. And you can actually have a genetic mutation called MTHFR that causes you to have histamine reactions as well from eating meat. And you can also actually have histamine reactions from the way you cook your food. So one study I read, it said that the cooking methods such as frying and grilling might increase the histamine levels in foods. It might, didn't say it will, but there was a smaller increase in the histamine, but doesn't mean it will happen. But there was a small increase by cooking it that way. So what can you do to stop histamine reactions? So one, obviously, if you're already a carnivore, eating the freshest meat possible is going to limit your histamine reaction. Looking at the medications you're on as well will help. Now, don't quit any medications without consulting with your doctor first. But like I said earlier, there are some medications that interfere with your histamine digestive and all that other stuff in your body. So look into that. But if you're not a carnivore and you're experiencing histamine reactions, obviously, dietary change is the best treatment for histamine reactions after all other medical conditions have been ruled out. So, but what your doctor should actually try doing once you have been medical testing has been ruled out, such as looking for that gene mutation, completing a skin allergy test, and then a tritase blood test, and then review some medications. Your diet is going to be the best way to treat histamine reactions. There's actually been a few studies out there that diet has been the number one helper for histamine reactions out there. I'm going to tell a little bit about my story real quick. So I have tried, even though I'm carnivore, I have tried. I'm like, hey, let me try some pistachios. Had a couple pistachios. Yeah, no, not having pistachios. I had a histamine reaction to those. I got the runny nose, really bad itchy eyes. I felt like I had nasal congestion, and I got like brain fog coming back from eating just a handful of pistachios, so that was a no-go for me. I have tried Lily's chocolates, and I do notice when I eat those, I do have a slight histamine reaction as well. So I avoid those too. And then, obviously they're not carnivore either, so there's that. I also noticed that I think that might be what's happening with me with my dairy reaction, is because histamine can cause anxiety. And so I'm wondering if that's my body's way of interacting with the dairy, is having an overreaction and having a high level of histamine in my body from the dairy. So I have learned something from doing this topic, actually, which is awesome. So that's cool. Now, when it comes to histamine in relation to cancer, this was kind of hard to find any data on. I don't know about like particular medications, but I did learn something from this. So there's continuing studies that are looking at the correlation between antihistamines and tumor growth. Now, I mentioned earlier that antihistamines were one of those medications that are going to affect your histamine level in your blood. But this research is actually looking at how these antihistamine drugs block the binding sites on the tumor for histamine. So tumors have histamine binding sites. So they're looking at adding antihistamines into people's cancer regimens. And they have shown in some of these studies that the cancer, the tumor actually stops growing because they're not receiving the histamine that they need to grow. So I thought that was pretty interesting as well. So yeah, they're looking at using antihistamines along with the immunotherapy drugs to treat cancer. So I thought that was pretty cool. So excess histamine has been shown to cause cancer to grow. That is what I've learned about histamine in relation to cancer. I don't know a lot of the cancer drugs. I'm sure there's plenty out there that people are taking to suppress their overall chances of their cancer coming back. But I did not research any of that type of medication. And so I don't know if maybe it's an antihistamine these people are taking or not. And if they are taking an antihistamine, it could cause them to have a histamine reaction elsewhere, because the antihistamine is going to interfere with the overall histamine in your body. But they're probably doing it just to lower the chances of the tumor growth of the cell. So I don't know. It all just depends on what your doctor prescribed you. And obviously that would take a little bit more research. And if you're also wary about it, just ask your doctor. And there's a big pamphlet that comes with all your medicines when you're prescribed something. I highly suggest you actually sit down and read it, because there's a lot of valuable information in there about side effects and what it could cause and all this other stuff. So that is all I have for you guys today. I hope you guys learned something about the histamine and how it affects your body and how your body actually works. And like always, don't forget that like button. Make sure you subscribe. And I will see you guys soon.